Hi guys, it's Howard again, and today we're having a look at the Voigtlander Vitessa N, a complex but beautiful camera. Back in the 1950s, the Vitessa was Voigtlander's top-of-the-range 35mm camera. It's beautifully built, of high quality, but very quirky. As folding cameras go, this is a real gem. There were a huge variety of models between 1950 and when it was finally replaced in 1957 with a rigid-fronted model. Mine was built in 1954 and is a Vitessa N version 2. So let's have a look at it. It's a very different and attractive camera. These are what's called the barn doors. It was called the barn door Voigtlander because of these. It was a bit of a nickname it had. So on the front we've got the barn doors, the post for the flash, cold shoe up the top. We've got a little window here for the film type, which is a lot of letters like NT and ND, and I don't know what they mean, so I ignore it. Next to that, there's the film exposure number. That has to be set manually. I'll show you that a little later. We've got the viewfinder window, the rangefinder window, and the name Voigtlander. So it's a lovely camera. We'll open it up. To open it up, you put your finger above the plunger to sort of stop it from opening too violently. Press the shutter, open the lens, and there we are. Okay, so the lens, as you'll see, is a Voigtlander Color Scopar f3.5 50mm. It's a 4-element tessar design and it's color-coded. So it's a very nice lens, and the shutter is a Synchro Compur, top quality shutter, speeds from 1 second to 1/500th of a second, and unfortunately, according to some, around the edge here there is the EV number scale with a interlock here. If you've got a light meter with EV readings, well, that's great. You just read it off the light meter and set it on here and you're in business. But EV values aren't very popular these days. People just prefer f-stops and shutter speeds and no interlock between them. Right, on the top of the camera we've got the plunger, cold shoe, a depth of field scale, and the shutter button. On the back we've got the viewfinder. Not really good for people with glasses, but I wear glasses. If I take my glasses off, I can still see absolutely clearly, and the rangefinder is fine. And we've got the focus wheel here, which moves the entire lens cluster in and out. So it's there's no front focusing element or anything like this. This is the whole lens goes in and out, which is the better way. Mine's got the little lugs on the side so that you can actually wear it with a neck strap, even though the earlier ones didn't have that. Underneath we've got a tripod mount. We've got the button to rewind the film, the locking mechanism that removes the back of the camera, and the rewind mechanism. Now this is pretty interesting. If you put it like that, you can turn it over and it'll actually stand up. It's like a little foot, which is pretty cute, I reckon. So we'll pop that back in. Okay, so let's have a look at the shutter mechanism. Right, so we've got the speeds around here. It's nice click stops, and that's interlocked with the apertures. As you see, they're moving together. That can be overwritten, so it's not too much of a problem. So as I say, the speeds are from 1 second to 1/500th. Aperture is f3.5 to f22. We've also got X and M and V for a self-timer, sort of around the corner there. And they're actuated from the bottom. So if I turn it around, turn it upside down, there's a little tab here on the bottom. So X and M, just simply slide it either way. To get onto V, you've got to cock it first and then push it across quite firmly, and you can feel it cocking the spring that works the self-timer, and that takes about 10 seconds to unwind when you take the shot, so it's pretty good. The rangefinder on these is quite a wide base rangefinder, and still at this age it's quite clear. There's no problem with getting the two images to overlap accurately. What else is of interest? I'm going to load a film in a minute, but I just want to make sure I've covered everything externally first. All right. Now, I don't normally load films in these videos, but I'm going to in this instance because it's quite complex, and I think it's worth doing. There's a few tricky aspects to it. So to take the back off, pull this down, rotate it 90 degrees till it lines up. You can see the word off there, probably means take the back off. Anyhow, that just the whole thing slides off. I'll just put that over there. Right, so that's the internals of the camera. It's got a double interlock, so you can pump this up and down as much as you like, but you can only take one shot, and then it winds the film on. Very nicely made. It's all cast, absolute top quality. All right, so now putting a film in, I'll just move that over there. Inside here, we've got a few things. In the window over here, the film types. There's a little wheel that you rotate with a fingernail. It'll give you letters like ND and NT and in black and red, and really they're obviously German and they stand for abbreviations of something, but it has no operational effect whatsoever, so I just ignore it. But quite importantly, the pressure plate is sprung, as you'd expect, but because of the way the back has to go on, there's a little mechanism up at the top here. Now, they're supposed to spring up automatically. Mine doesn't, so I've got to make sure I pull that up as far as it'll go. When the bottom is pushed back onto the camera, that gets pushed back down and releases this. But to help us get it up past the film, you pull that up and retract it as much as you can. Okay, let's get a film and have a go at this. All right, I've got a nice fresh Kodacolor 200 here. I thought I'd actually use a real film because I've got inspired pulling this out, so I'm going to go and take a few shots afterwards. But so rotate that around till the slot appears. Push it in nice and firmly. Pull the film across, drop it in. Now you've got to make sure that it's sitting up above this. There's a shoulder just there, so it's a bit of finagling usually. There we go. So it's above the shoulder. Okay, it's on the gears. Let's just put the back on. Oh, before I do that, I've got to set the exposure number around to 0. Match that up with the little black dot. Cassette's fallen out again. Get it back in. There we go. Get the back on. All right, now it's stopped at that point. Jiggle the rewind around a bit till that locates properly in position. Push it on all the way. Close it. Okay, now we can pop that back in there. Okay, now so it's on starting point. We cock it take one shot, hold it down, press it again and again, and next time we press it down, we'll be ready to start shooting. So that's the, I don't think I've missed anything. I've got to admit they're a much nicer camera to shoot than they are to load. Film loading is a bit of a pain, but once you get the film loaded, they're a lovely camera to shoot. And if you've got the light meter with the EV values, well, that's really handy as well. Otherwise, you can override the EV values by pulling down the little EV thing slightly, and that'll clear the serrations. Okay, well, that's about it. The Voigtlander Vitessa N. It's a beautiful camera. If you're trying to find one, they won't be cheap. They're fairly pricey little units because they're absolutely top of the range at the time, and they're still capable of excellent photos. And anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something from it. If you have, please leave me a like and subscribe. That'd be great. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.